We sometimes hear on TV, we interrupt our regular programming for this very important breaking news. So whenever we hear that, we usually pay attention to what's going to be said here. Something must be important that happened. In the scriptures today, we see that in the first reading, in Deuteronomy, some breaking news. The author of Deuteronomy recalls the promise that Moses had made to his people that he had received from God, that he would send them a prophet. And they had forgotten that. So he was breaking back into their lives now to make sure they didn't forget that. That was an important aspect for them to know. And he told them that when this prophet comes, they were to heed him. To him you shall listen. In the gospel reading, Jesus, the prophet that he was talking about in Deuteronomy, is here. And he speaks now and acts with authority. And he interrupts people's lives with his breaking news, the good news. And the people paid attention to what he said, and they were amazed. And many followed him. There have been many prophets throughout our faith history who spoke with authority. And they all had important breaking news to share. I can think of I thought of many, but I'll just share a couple with you. Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr. And today, we have a prophet in our midst in a very real way. Pope Francis, who speaks with authority, a simple authority. And believers and unbelievers are awed, amazed. Same words that we use in the gospel about Jesus. They're amazed with him. They listen to what he has to say. Oftentimes, people pay attention to these prophets because they come across as being truly godly, holy, with a deep sense of sincerity and integrity in their lives. And that attracts people to listen, therefore, to them. And prophets are always concerned about the right and the true. They have a deep compassion for those who are poor, the downtrodden, those who are treated with injustice. And so these qualities make people take notice of when they speak and are amazed or touched by them somehow. But I believe there has been and there is, and there probably always will be, a serious danger with prophets in our lives that we need to be aware of. And namely, that if we are only impressed or amazed, that's really not enough. That's very superficial. It's easy to get amazed. But what do we do with that amazement? The ultimate impact of Pope Francis, for example, is going to be minimal if we are only impressed with him, but afraid to follow in his footsteps. Pope Francis cannot change the world alone. He's leading the way. But he needs us to follow him, not just be amazed. And so we need Catholics today who are courageously prophetic in their own lives, who speak with authority that they believe, Not the authority that comes from the power to enforce, because that never gets too far, but with the power that Pope Francis has, the ability to inspire others to live with integrity and justice and compassion and selflessness and generosity and care for the poor. So it has to be more than just amazed. If we really love this Pope and take seriously what he says, then we have to look at our own lives and say, what part of what he's saying can I put into my life and make some changes for myself so that he's not just walking alone, but that we're with him beyond amazement. St. Francis of Assisi said, "Preach always and use words when necessary." Well, I'm preaching with words right now. But most of the time, we preach without words. We preach by our lives, by what we say, by what we do, by our attitudes. And that's what has to change if we're going to follow Pope Francis or any prophets, especially Jesus. We can't just be amazed. We need to let it touch our hearts and say, okay, I like and I heard what he said. It makes sense. How can I do some of that in my life? And it's different for all of you. But you can make some changes that will help other people see you, maybe in the similar light as Francis, be amazed and maybe be touched because of your life. Preaching with or without words is always risky because it means putting our minds, our hearts, our lives on the line for the Lord. But we're not doing this alone. Jesus said he would be with us, and he is. That's why we're here around his altar to celebrate Eucharist and to receive him, the very gift of himself, to welcome him into our minds, our hearts, our souls, to help us change somehow when we leave here, in whatever small way it might be, because change is gradual. As long as it happens, that's the important thing. The gift of the Eucharist is given to us to strengthen us so that our lives as Catholics and as Christians will truly interrupt the regular programming of life with his good news by the way we live.